Raise the bar.
Learn firsthand from successful business owners and create your own path to success.
I'm going to show you how great I am.
It's time to hit the road to growth with team lead of the Enriquez Group, Realtor Vinny.
Hi, Road Trip listeners. Today I have a fun one. We got a lot of topics to jump into. We got Ravi. So born outside the U.S., became a doctor in the U.S. He has a clinic, TED Talk, author, inventor, entrepreneur. There's a lot of things to talk about. We're going to try to see where everything takes us. But thank you, Ravi, for being here today.
Hey, thank you, Vinny. It's a pleasure.
So, I mean, this day when you go to like luncheons or functions, how do you kind of like, what's your elevator pitch? How do you describe kind of who Ravi is in a short window of time?
I'm the guy who can save your life. That's all.
Oh, is that the pitch? I'm the guy.
Yeah, because it's like like Mr. Miyagi says in Karate Kid, there's no breathing, no problems. So so I'm the guy who saves your life.
That's a good one to probably get some intrigue and more questions to follow up.
Yeah, I mean, I do it in several levels. At a very obvious level, I'm a physician. I take care of people's biological problems, but that is what I've been doing for 42 years. But the learning that I have accumulated over 42 years has translated into a much bigger scope that really got fleshed out and refined during the pandemic. So what I realized in the pandemic was that right from childhood, the only thing that I ever done in my life is seek the answer to two questions. How does life work? And how do you make life work when it doesn't? So initially, I started off with my natural curiosity towards how do living creatures work? How do fishes and frogs and birds and insects and dogs and cats, how do they work? How do humans work? But as I started going, and that took me into the field of biology and medicine, but as I went through that, I started, asking the question, okay, I understand how it works, but how do you make it work when it doesn't work? When I started asking the second question, I invariably came to certain points where the accumulated sum of my knowledge was not enough to figure out how to make it work when it doesn't. And I got frustrated with medicine. I threw away medicine and I went into research. So basically, I traded the stethoscope for the microscope, and I went into basic research for 10 years. Got a doctoral degree in peptide, protein chemistry, biochemistry, molecular biology. I went from there, ended up at All India Institute, and from there reached Harvard. And after spending a good 10 years of my life in basic research, I started realizing that it was time for me to get back to the bedside and get back to human beings. And so I brought back to the bedside, picked up the stethoscope, got back into clinical medicine. But this time when I got into clinical medicine, I started looking at, okay, how can I bring those learnings that I took from the research field into medicine and translate it into translational medicine for my community. So I started doing community medicine, and then I started doing clinical trials as well as doing clinical medicine. I'm one of the very few doctors who ran both equally well. And because of all this, I started rising up in the hierarchy of the organization. I became a chairman of a department in a hospital. I became a hospice medical director, and then the question then expanded. It became, how do you make the department work, and how does the department work, and how do you make the department work when it doesn't? And then when I became a hospice medical director, I started asking the question, the biggest question that human beings have is, because when you're dealing with the dying people, you're no longer trying to make the body work. The body is already broken down. You're trying to get the person to actually face the ultimate question of humanity, what happens to me when my body breaks down? And you try to help them face that question in an empowering way, in a way that gives them some sense of peace. And you can't really go after picking up some religious book for everyone, because there'll always be somebody who's not going to be resonating to the language of that instruction. So for those people, I had to ask the question, okay, what constitutes a human being? what, what makes me me? What makes you you? And when I started asking that question, I suddenly realized that the answers that I was getting from there had direct translational impact in the way executives handled problems, the way coaches worked with athletes, in the way teachers taught, in the way doctors saw patients. It was all fundamentally human beings interacting with human beings, and they were all interacting with human beings under the idea that we are one kind of people, that we live and experience reality in a particular way. And my work with the dying people really showed me that we actually experience life in two ways. One is our perception, our five senses giving us input through, so the environment interacts with our five senses and gives us input. And the other is a meaning making machine that we all have, that automatically takes that input and makes it a meaning, makes it a name, a form, an interpretation, a value, a preference, a dislike, and out of that preference and dislike, a certain experience that is either pleasurable or distasteful. And out of that comes a decision, either an attraction towards something or a withdrawal from it, and a strategy that is stored in memory for future use, that will dictate how you respond when the same set pattern of environmental impulses come. And I suddenly realized that people are alive to reality only the first time. After that, they are living in their interpretation. So you are in real estate. You take a potential buyer, and their opinions about the affordability of their home, their ability to live, their idea of what kind of home they can live or resonate to, influences the way they perceive your model home, or the way they perceive everything. So the possibilities of their life is completely dictated not by the reality of your stage home, but by their preconceived notion of what they want in a home. And while that may be good or bad, you as a real estate professional have to instinctively recognize what they are bringing to the table, and on the fly you have to tailor your communication to resonate with that filter. But if you approach them without even knowing that they had a filter, you are never the chances that your message will hit the mark is totally accidental.
For sure. And I think with everything, right? We have, like you said, we have filter on everything, right? You go to the doctor, you have a filter like, okay, well, these people are above me. I can't basically ask a question. They're going to basically frown upon my question,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
being okay with the unknown, I guess, and just being open to kind of what's even possible.
Yes, but there is a way you can be with people that completely disarms their filter. That way is when you approach them without a filter yourself, their filters will start falling by themselves.
To rewind a little bit, I know there's a lot of stuff that kind of brought up. I just want to get back to a little bit to your journey real fast. And one thing that was intriguing that kind of like maybe trigger, I don't know if you heard of Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah.
That's okay. He basically says when kids are young, they're curious. And over time, they lose that curiosity. And if we basically allowed that curiosity to grow, we'd have more doctors, we'd have more astrophysicists, we'd have a lot more people like looking at it.
Absolutely.
Where does your curiosity stay? Because you're like, I was curious about this, so I went after it. I was curious about this, I went after it. I was curious about this, went after it. So why are you so curious? And where did it come from?
I think that was just my genetic makeup. I was born with a neurological trait that, I was born with ADHD and Asperger's. So the Asperger's side of my neurological makeup gave me photographic memory. So I could accumulate impressions much easier than other people. The ADHD part of my neurological makeup made it very difficult for me to execute on those impressions in an orderly, coherent way. So I would spin out of control. So my ADHD is nothing more like having a meaning-making machine that is a Ferrari compared to the rest of the world that is, going around in a Volkswagen Beetle. But I had a Ferrari with no brakes, and I really did not understand the power of my mind until I started developing the ability to actually put brakes. And I grew up in India in 1958. The idea of neurodiversity came out in 1998. I was 40 years old by then. Nobody knew what ADHD was. I didn't have any treatment. I didn't have therapy. I didn't have cognitive behavioral therapy. In fact, even if they knew it, there was so much stigma associated with mental health that I would never have been given that. So as a result, I had to struggle to find my way through that maze. Every day for me was like living in a glass capsule with a million butterflies flying around me and trying to look at the world outside through that storm. And because I was born with it, I thought everyone else was doing the same thing. I never realized that this was just me alone. So I always wondered that why is it so difficult for me? I'm much sharper than everybody. I can understand the concept, but they always get the first rank. I get the 10th rank. Why? And it was a long time. I was 22 when I had the breakthroughs and insights that suddenly allowed me to separate this perception and the meaning-making machine. I recognized that my Asperger's allowed me to capture perception into memory like that. My meaning-making machine would take that perception and spit it out into a million options that I had no control over. And then I started realizing that my brain automatically collapsed these two domains together, my perception and my meaning-making. And I learned the techniques needed to separate these two and stand in the space between them.
So how did you learn these techniques, or where do you go about?
I had a fortunate occurrence where my father, just not without intending, took me one day. We were on a trip in southern India, and he took me to a monastery. Just to visit. It was a holy place. So how people go to a temple or to a church or a place of worship. He said, he thought, I was a 22-year-old boy. He probably thought that, I wanted me to get some grounding and not be led astray by my youth. He wanted me to experience a higher purpose. And he took me to that monastery. So it was built around the tomb of a saint. He had passed away in 1950, about 8 years before I was born. But there was a monk there who had been an attendant of that saint while that saint was alive. So that monk took us on a tour all over the monastery. And so I got attracted to that monk. So after the tour was over and everyone had gone back to their cottage, I broke away from the crowd and snuck back to the monk's cottage and started asking him some questions. And he started answering, and he allowed me to see the difference between the two. And what is more, he actually taught me a method of being present that at that time it did not immediately sink. It took me another 15, 20 years. I was 42 by the time I got skilled. But what was specific was every day I would spend 15, 20 minutes practicing that technique. And by 42, I started getting the ability to separate.
Oh, wait. You're doing a lot of build-up for this technique. I think people are listening. They want to hear what this technique is.
Oh, it is just watching your breath.
Oh, okay. So how long do you do that for?
I just did. It's like, listen, if you want to build a muscle, like you want to build your biceps, you got to set aside time and resources and space. You got to go to a gym. You got to set aside time. You got to invest in a membership, and you need to build muscle, and you'll build muscle. If you want to develop the mental muscle of separating these two domains from the collapse that your mind always does automatically, and I'll come back to the child example because I know why they lose their curiosity. This is because so you have to spend 15 minutes at least every day in that mental muscle exercise of sitting in a space where you can just start watching your breath without distraction. Now, imagine just like initially you would dedicate some time separate from other activities for building your muscle, and like that initially you will dedicate some time for this exercise, 15 minutes. But like balance, like somebody trying to balance, initially trying to balance on a bicycle, you'll fall here, and then one day you get balance, right? So once you get balance on a bicycle, out of 100 people with balance on a bicycle, 99 of them will just use that balance to bicycle from the house to the grocery store and back. But out of that 100, there'll be one person who will say, "Hey, I want to bicycle to the grocery store with my hands up." All right. And then out of 100 that develop this ability, there'll be one person who will say, "You know what? I want to go to the grocery store with my hands up, but doing a wheelie on one wheel." And out of 100 that are doing a wheelie with the hands up, there'll be one person who will say, "I want to do a wheelie, but on a tightrope." Now, the only difference between the man who's doing a bicycle to the grocery store and the one who's doing a tightrope wheelie is they're all common element is all balance. But the uncommon element is the degree of challenge to the balance. All right. So same with this. Your breathing, initially people can only sit in a small room, lights have to be dimmed, sound has to be kept outside, and you develop the ability to stay focused with your attention on your breathing without it's an observational exercise. No different than a Japanese tea ceremony, no different than painting, no different than poetry, no different than doing a violin. Any observational exercise will drive you towards perception and will separate the meaning making machine away from perception. And in that space is what psychologists call a flow state. A flow state is a state of intense concentration that allows you to have a shift in the identity of time and space for you. Now, most athletes, musicians, mathematicians, scientists, they all have described flow states. I discovered how to enter a flow state at will and get out of it at will. I discovered the ability to enter flow states in the middle of talking to people. In the middle of my day, in my work, I developed the ability to be in a flow state for extended periods of time, 8, 10, 12 hours. And I found that when I was in a flow state, that people around me naturally gravitated to me because in my presence, their meaning-making machine slowed down. They experienced a slowing of the storm of ideas and storm of meanings that their mind would prop up when they were around me. They did not understand that. They would say, "I feel calmer in your presence." They'll say, "I feel more clear in your presence." But what would the experience that they had was they felt good around me. My patients felt good around me. They felt more sure of their options in their life. And then later on, as I developed more and more of this ability, I started getting sensitive to the meanings of that was going on in them, even when they had not articulated it. I could sense what was running on in their head. And when that happened, I can tailor my communication to address that without them having to articulate it. What people call intuition developed. And when you're intuitive, you start emoting better. When you emote, you communicate better. When you communicate better, what happens is two people in communication, they enter into communion. And when you have communion, you are having heart speaking to heart, and a community is born. A community is not a bunch of bodies occupying the same space. A community is a bunch of hearts speaking the same speech.
I don't know. Again, this is what makes you chuckle. I think there's a lot of just how you carry yourself basically allows someone to pull their guards down. And I think when you talk, I don't know if it's your mustache or you're actually smiling, but you seem like you have a smile when you're talking. And I was trying to pick that up about if it was. So you're giving off kind of like a soft tone while being giving off a very visual conversation by also smiling. So it makes it easier for, I think, the other person to pull their guard down.
No, it is not mechanical like that. But so if you do use that strategy and use it like a technique, it won't work.
Yeah.
Because the inauthenticity of that as a strategy will show through unconsciously.
Well, no, I wouldn't say necessarily a strategy, but more of like just the idea that how
You
you're
are-
talking,
you-
you're talking with like with emotion, but also a positive emotion, I guess.
But that's the meaning that you're giving
Yeah.
to your experience. What I'm actually doing
Yeah.
is communicating with you, and I'm enjoying my communication. That's what I'm actually doing. And
Gotcha.
you are experiencing the effect of that, and you are then making a meaning that, you know what, why am I experiencing it? It is because of these things. But no, why you are experiencing it is because A, I'm speaking from lived experience. I'm not speaking from a concept. Two, B, I am enjoying this. I am in flow right now. The fluency of my language, the natural poetry of this is not rehearsed. I didn't plan.
No, for sure. It's not. Yeah.
No, but it is. I didn't plan to say these things.
Yeah.
I'm speaking from lived experience, and the words are flowing, and they're flowing naturally, and I'm enjoying it, and you are experiencing that flow. That's all. Now, yeah, go ahead.
Well, let's say you were going to state about basically why you think curiosity leaves kids as an age.
Kids, because so it's not just kids; it's with everyone, right?
Yeah.
So let's take a 7-year-old kid. He's walking on a hike, just dancing through the field, and he picks up a stick. And that stick for the 7-year-old kid is full of possibilities. It can be a sword, it can be a spear, it can be a fishing pole, it can be a cane, it can be so many things. And that kid is completely overjoyed with the stick. Because for that kid, that stick is not predefined into one set. And the vast expanse of the possibilities of the stick fills the kid with joy and expansion of options that the kid can experience. And so he goes around with that thing. And one day he makes the decision that the stick is going to be a sword. And in that instant, every stick for this kid now becomes a sword. So, like this, from childhood, we create the bricks of our prison wall. We experience something, and initially it can be anything. And then one day we decide that it is going to be this thing. And we make that a brick. And then another brick in the wall, like Pink Floyd said. All right. So now, so we build our prison, and then we live within that prison. And as we get older, the walls get higher and higher, and we stop seeing the world around us. We become closed off to options. You are black, you are white, you are Republican, you are Democrat, you are MAGA, you are crazy left guy. All these are walls. It has nothing to do with the human in us. All right? And that changes the possibilities open to you. Now, the reason why you create these walls is because every creature, from the little one cell amoeba in a pond water to a human being understands that life is unpredictable. So every creature has a prediction seeking machine built in to protect the creature for survival. The tiger that cannot predict where the deer is going to appear is going to go hungry. The deer that cannot predict where the tiger is going to appear is going to get eaten. So this prediction seeking machine is our meaning making machine to basically capture experience and file it away into memory as a defined construct. But then our brain is an intensely efficient and lazy organ. If any experience comes to us that we already have a map for it, we will not look at the experience, we'll pull out the map. So I tell in my coaching classes, I tell them that, how many of you have kissed? And they'll all say, I have kissed, everyone has kissed. Yeah. How many have kissed? How many times have you kissed? So, 1,000 times, 100 times, whatever. And I say, you have only kissed once. Every kiss after that was a replay of the first kiss. So you were never alive. So it is like as if you're sitting at the restaurant table of life and the meal of life is being served to you, and you are studying the menu that describes the meal and choosing to eat the menu. And then you wonder why life tastes like cardboard, why it has no joy, it is insipid, it has no flavor. Everything, why is there this dead sameness? And then one day you say, you know what, we got to spice things up. I need to go on a vacation. And you go to Bora Bora, Tahiti, you go to Mount Everest base camp, you climb up to Kilimanjaro. And then you have this expansion because you suddenly go to a place where you had no meaning for that before. You had no narrative for it before. You had never had that experience before. So you experience it for the first time. And then you make the fatal flaw. You make the assumption, the meaning that going on vacation is what will give you that experience. And because you got it at Everest base camp, next time you have to jump off a cliff in a wingsuit. You have to keep on this escalating arms race of meanings to try to break through the wall, the prison wall of your meanings to experience the world, when all you had to do was sit in your backyard and experience your surroundings. That's it.
No, I think that's pretty powerful. I'm trying to kind of just soak it in. So I guess go back to your analogy of the kiss, right? And then going for the next kiss and the next kiss, and not basically just duplicating what you previously had. How do you go into each activity with a fresh slate, I guess?
So when you develop the ability, it is at this time, whenever I say something, it's only going to be in the realm of concepts, because it is not in the realm of experience. But when you develop the ability to separate perception from meaning, even for a fraction of an instant, you're able to experience that for the first time. It is not that you don't experience it. People experience the space of perception all the time. They don't know that is what they're experiencing. So imagine like a movie screen. On the movie screen, when you sit before a movie and you see Tom Hanks or Tom Cruise, doing all those fantastic things, all of that is shadows upon the screen. And you only see the shadows, which is the meaning. But you are aware that there is a screen. But when the shadows stop moving, you are able to see the screen. But if you work hard at it, even while the movie is going, you will know that, yes, there is a screen there. But usually your attention is not. So the first thing you need to understand is everything revolves around your attention. The spotlight of your attention is your lived experience. When your attention is upon meanings, then your lived experience is all your meanings. When your attention is upon the experience of how something feels to the touch, how something smells to the nose, how something tastes on the tongue, how something feels in the eardrum as the sound hits, how something hits the eye. As you get closer and closer to feeling things, the further you move away, the further you take the spotlight of your attention towards perception. Observational exercise is a feeling exercise. But most people are nervous about feeling because feeling requires vulnerability. It is far safer to sit on your interpretations and your opinions and your stories and let the stories rule the world. But if you have the courage to feel, you will experience the space. And in that space, once you experience it once, you will know how to create it. So then you start developing the ability to stand before another person in the space of your feelings and not confuse your feeling with your meanings. That's what people do. People think their feeling is whatever meanings they make. So I teach people, I'll take two people and I'll have one person tell some event of their life to another person. They're facing each other. But this person has to listen to what he's saying, not with the idea that I'm going to understand him, but listen as if he's a space into which this person's story is falling into, with no desire to try to comprehend what he's saying. It's hard, but you do it. And initially you'll go fall back and you go back, but every now and then you will get a sense of it. But when you do it, the person who's telling the story, when the exercise is over, you ask that person how they felt. They'll say, I have felt heard for the first time. Now you turn around and tell this person who's been not paying attention to what he's saying, he's been focusing on just receiving the sound. And I ask him, why don't you give that person some opinion of yours that will help him? I don't say what. And this person will say something that will be profound and impactful for this person without ever realizing that he understood it. Now, some psychologists will say, his subconscious felt it. Yes, but the subconscious is so much more powerful than your conscious. And the subconscious is where the children live.
Yeah, I would say for anyone listening right here, probably this is not going to be best served at a networking event. This is going to probably be best served with someone that you actually trust and care for. I would assume.
Initially, yes. When you're trying to learn it, yeah, you need to be in a space of.
Because I would think, right? I mean, like if you go to, let's say, a networking event, right? Like you're a business and going to another and talking to another one. In my opinion, there's a lot of sales, and that's why we talked about. Basically, we're all trying to protect ourselves. The sword is this. We put the thing around us, right? But you're protecting your time too, right? Because one of the most valuable things we have in this world is time, right? And so if you're getting something unsolicited, right, and you're allowing yourself to just basically soak it all in, it's not going to be best served. So this seems like it's best for someone you care for, someone you're really trying to kind of engage with or grow with, I would think.
So, all right, you touched upon something that opens a different box, and I'll open that box for you.
Okay.
If you want to make an impact, regardless of size, whether it is impact on one person or impact on 10 people or impact on 100 or impact on 1,000 or impact upon the world, you absolutely have to engage with the recipients of your impact, desired impact, as if they and you belong to the same entity. If you see them as separate from you, you cannot make impact.
But they also have to be wanting to be on the same level as you too.
No. No,
You don't think so?
no, not initially. What will happen is when you approach them.
Huh?
All right, let me preface that a little bit. So, when you come to a crowd or a group and you start engaging with everyone with from the space of enormous connection and compassion, which is where you actually
Yeah.
come from, what will happen is there will be some people who will resonate immediately, and other people who will resonate cautiously, and other people who will resonate with fear.
Okay.
And the reason for that is the person who's resonating with fear has some experience in the past where their vulnerability, when they opened up to somebody, was not met with integrity. And they felt violated because of that. And as a result, they became cautious about engaging in at that level. So when that happens, you just recognize that that happens and you continue to focus on those who are connecting with you. But you neither negate the people who are not connecting nor affirm them. You just recognize their existence and move on. What will happen is, as you continue to engage with those who are connecting, and there'll always be somebody who will connect, you engage with that person authentically, with compassion, with connection. The other person will start getting infected out of that connection. Now, mind you, this whole thing cannot be done from an idea of somehow you're trying to manipulate people into buying what you're selling. You really have to desire that whatever impact that you are making in their life is you are willing to be a stand for it to really transform their life. It is not about you selling your idea. When I walk into a patient's room, I am not concerned about my existence. I am concerned about being a 100% stand on my patient and making sure that that person has an expansion in the possibilities available to them. So if you are approaching a bunch of real estate people in your profession and you want them to have an expansion in their possibility, now you really engage from there. There's nothing that you will do that will be harming them. It is impossible, because whatever expansion they experience is dictated by them, not by you. So they will naturally require only those expansions that are in their best interest. And if you are working towards that, and the simple word for that is called service. So you are approaching them from the standpoint of service, but I am actually telling you where service emanates from is the space of being. Not as a strategy, but as a state of actual existence.
No, I understand. I for sure understand where you're coming from. I think I could probably go back and forth. I understand where you're coming from on it, and in practice,
you're trying to capsulate it for the audience in a capsule that will make it easy without the pain of struggling to acquire the skill, and that is not going to happen. You want to play in life like Michael Jordan, then you or Kobe Bryant. You have to put in the work.
For sure. And I think probably the easiest way is if you have a passion about something and you have a service mindset, like you said, right? There's going to be a big portion of the population that's going to gravitate towards that if they're open to it, right? Yes. So I can appreciate that for sure. And I think there's surroundings where there's going to be a higher likelihood that there's going to be less people that are going to be open to it. But I understand what you're saying, right? Yeah. No, I think I appreciate you, Ravi. I mean, there's so much stuff that we probably didn't go through. And
we can talk for hours. We can talk for hours.
I still love that visual that you talked about, where you're talking about how your mind works, where you're in a capsule with all these butterflies and they're constantly going there. But the breathing, it kind of allowed you to kind of separate and actually look at all like the butterflies and kind of see those ideas right
Or
there.
they actually settled down.
Oh, they settled down. So it's a really cool visual. I never heard anyone talk about it like that, but it's gonna be something that's gonna probably resonate with me right there. That idea.
Yeah. So the take home lesson for your audience would be take 5 minutes in an observational exercise every day.
Yeah.
Make that 5 into 10, 10 into 15, 15 into 20, and pick an observational exercise that you can do not just in isolation but also in the crowd. And then develop the skill to be in that space even when you are with people. You won't be distracted, but you will be grounded. And when you're grounded, you'll actually have an expansion.
What for people listening right now, and again, thank you so much, Ravi, for being here. If you were listening right now, how can they stay up to date with getting new information, your books, TED Talks, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I'm right now just polishing up my. I just finished my most recent fifth and sixth book, actually, fifth, sixth, and seventh book. That is all actually a 3-volume set on leadership that is going to come out probably in December. But you reach me on my website. It's a single place, www.d as in David, R as in Robert, IYER.com. And you can put that into the show notes or whatever.
Yeah, it's in there. It's in there right now. Yeah.
Yeah. And my email is right there. I personally answer my email. I don't have any bot or a human being in my employ doing that. So I respond to all emails, and that's it. That's the best way to reach and follow me. And from my website, you can reach my YouTube. I have a YouTube channel that people can look at where all my YouTube is at Dr. Iyer MD, and you can see all the like. For example, this podcast will be on the playlist too on YouTube.
Okay, this is going to be I'm going to finish off this last question. This is probably going to be a hard one. And you can't tell the future. I know you can't do that. But if we were talking in a couple of years from now, where do you think your curiosity would lead you?
Where my growth is more and more towards. During the pandemic, I suddenly realized. So for 42 years, I've been doing this work one-on-one, one person to one person. Yeah. During the pandemic, my clinic became one of 90% of the clinics in my area shut down to in-person care during the pandemic. We stayed open, and we not only stayed open, we thrived. We were able to keep us safe, and we were able to keep our entire community of nearly 100,000 people safe. And after the pandemic was over, I looked at the devastation and I said, you know what, you really do not need to have this. And I decided that I needed to take my message and the methodologies that we practice from a one-to-one to one-to-many stage. And I wrote a book, then I went on podcast, and then I went to a TED Talk. That became viral. And now, today I'm here. So where I'm going with this work of spreading the message that your attention is your most valuable property. And anything that leads to the theft of your attention devalues you immediately. We now live in an attention economy where the fundamental nature of human beings is monetized. And that is the biggest threat to our existence, because we can no longer experience life when our attention is hijacked from us. And so my message is gain control over your attention, your most valuable currency. And when you gain control, I can tell you immense success, immense wealth, immense power comes into your possession. And you can move mountains. And I would like everyone to do that. So 5 years from now, my expectation is that my message is spread further. I'm being much more well received, more recognized on this, but the message will remain the same. There's no new message.
You know what? That one monk he did right by a lot of people right there. He helped out a lot of us.
Yeah.
So thank you, Ravi, for being here. Hopefully, everyone got some great information. Please subscribe.
I want to give you one little analogy that the monk did. I didn't want to go into depth on that, but it will take me exactly 2 minutes. So one day he asked me, "Did you have a good bowel movement?"
Okay.
So I said, "Yeah, I had a good bowel movement." So he said, "After you emitted your excreta, were you still concerned about your excreta after you had emitted it?" And he said, "I said, of course not." And I laughed at him. He said, "Of course not. I washed myself and I left the place. I flushed and walked away." He said, "Yesterday you ate food and your digestive system took that food and converted it into useful products for your body and also into excreta. That entire process, both the useful product and the excreta, was completely automatic. You had no control over it. And the only purpose it is for the survival of your body." Like that, your brain takes the input from your 5 senses and converts it into these plans and hopes and dreams and fears and names and forms and all these meanings of your life. It's purely for the survival of your identities. And then he looked at me, he said, "You're playing in shit and stinking up your life."
There's probably a lot more of the analogy we can go down the rabbit hole, but I think that's probably a good way to finish it. I mean, I think there's been a common theme throughout this whole episode. I mean, how we perceive things. I mean, how we take things in, how we put it back out to the universe. But thank you again, guys. Please subscribe. Please share. Go find Ravi. Bye, everyone.